Hello again, my most amazing artists. Today, we're going to be making some mermaid tails. We're going to be talking all about texture. Specifically, we're going to be talking about scales. In addition to that, we're going to learn about a new technique called sgraffito, which means to scratch. Let's get started. I'm going to show you just on this test paper a couple of the patterns that you might try today and how you can create variety in that. So, for instance, scales can look a lot of different ways depending on the animal, or in this case, mythological or imaginary creature, that they're on. But most of the time, I see these bumpy lines that are being created for scales. Think about like the scales on a fish. Mermaid tails seem to be about the same. You could put in a couple random ones if you wanted. Maybe you want it to be more rounded. Here's how this works. You create your bumpy section, and then from the middle of that section, we're going to repeat that same pattern like a U shape. If it's easier for you to flip this over and instead do it like a hill, you could also try that. Oops. There we go. You can carry that outward too, so if it doesn't go all the way to the edge, you could try something like that. Okay, so you can see the difference in between these two, but they're very similar. You could also even do it like a diamond pattern, so you could start kind of like a zigzag. Maybe do it a little thinner down here. Scales are on a lot of creatures that students draw in my classroom. A lot of times I see students creating these textures on dragons or other imaginary creatures. And this year we might do a lot of it for some of the under the sea themed things that we're going to do, a lot of ocean inspired animals. So I just want to give you a variety of ideas before we even start. So there's one that you could do that's very similar, but you can see maybe one might be a little bit more soft, one might be a little bit more intense. Just kind of depends on the mood that you're going for. I like this kind of sharp, dramatic scale here. Another one that I like to do, this one's a little trickier, is like a petal scale, which looks like this. Think about like the petals on a flower. This one can be a little trickier to draw, so I would recommend practicing it if you choose to do one like this. If not every scale turns out perfect, it's okay. Most sea creatures are not perfect either. If you live in the ocean, you've definitely had some life experiences that have shaped you. Some of those things might even shape your scales. Okay, so here are just a couple different varieties of scales that you might try. Again, you're not even limited to just this. If you have another idea, give it a shot. But we're going to try these repeating textures in a mermaid tail today. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a large sheet of paper. On the back, either with a pencil or a crayon, you're going to write your name and you're going to write your class code. You write your class code, not the word class code. Flip it over. All right, we're not drawing the whole mermaid today, okay? We're just going to be drawing the tail. So let's see how we do that here. What I'm going to start with at the bottom of my paper is a big curved line, and I'm going to start pretty wide. I'm going to come out a good ways. Sweep up, and I want to leave some space up here for my tail. I'm going to do the exact same motion, but I'm going to have it get wider as it goes to the bottom down here. Okay, from here, I'm going to begin to create my tail. So I'm going to bring that around and connect it. And I want to give it a big tail. This could be a mermaid, or it could be a merman. Think about the vibe you want it to have. You can see how I just drew my tail, but if you have a different idea for your tail and you want to do something totally different like this, or you want to do a tail that is just a triangle, but maybe it also has its own texture, any of those things are fine too. Think outside the box. So here, I'm going to add some lines that come down to the tip of my tail. And I want them to wiggle a little bit. I want them to have some movement or some motion to them, so that it seems more like the mermaid is swimming through the water and it's not just sitting still. Okay, once I have done this, I am going to begin adding that texture. I'm going to start with a bumpy line at the bottom. Almost like this mermaid is swimming down Again, if you're more comfortable flipping it over, go for it. If you come to an edge, just stop there. Same thing here. Come out to the edge, and then bounce from the center of each one of those hills to the next. And like I said, if you want to try a different pattern, go for it. I'm going to finish mine up. Okay, I think I have finished with this section. What I'm going to try doing now is I am going to go ahead and close my Sharpie, and we're going to start filling some of this in with crayon. You might even have noticed that I got a little smaller as I got towards the tip of the tail. If you want to do that, you definitely can. Okay, so now let's try some colors. I'm going to fill these in with heavy-handed color. I do not want to leave any holy-molys or white space in my coloring. So if it's light like this, that's not going to be enough to do the technique that we're trying today. So when you're doing it, either layer a lot or press hard while holding close to the tip of your crayon so it doesn't break, to really fill that space in. So let's see what colors I would like to use. I think I'm going to try some greens, some purples, some pinks, and some blues. Okay, now that I have completed all of my coloring, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cover everything in some black oil pastel. If you want to experiment with different colors, you can, but I think black is really striking. So I'm going to start with like one scale at a time. I think I'm going to turn this upside down now. I'm going to start with one scale at a time, and then once I get more comfortable, I'll start doing more. So maybe I'll do just a couple on this bottom row, and then I'll do the next row. So I know that we just spent a lot of time coloring really nicely on this. I don't want you to panic. This is going to be worthwhile as long as you follow directions and you push hard on your crayon and get that wax really built up. If you want to practice on a scrap sheet of paper, I'll provide some of those. It's probably a good idea to make sure that this is going to work. Otherwise, you will have put a lot of effort into something and you don't want to find out after the fact that it didn't work out the way you planned. So if you practice first, you are more likely to be successful with this, just like most art things, right? Okay, so I'm just doing this bottom row to start with, okay, so I can clearly see exactly where I'm going to scrape away. But this technique, again, is called sgraffito, which means to scratch. So I'm going to take this popsicle stick. You could use a toothpick, really any tool that is sharp enough to scratch through this will work. Excuse me. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create some more patterns by scraping away to reveal the color underneath. And this is going to turn out really, really cool if I take my time and go over each and every scale. Pulling around. This might take some practice depending on how you're holding your tool. You might end up with thinner lines. And let's say you make a mistake. Oh no! It's okay. Color over it again. Try again. I'm going to do this with each row, and if you want to do a different pattern, if you want to do dots, if you want to do swirls, whatever type of scales you want, you're going to create that texture in all of your scales, and your tail, give it some interesting texture as well. Let's give it a shot. You might notice along the way that your hands get kind of messy from this process. Just try not to leave finger marks on your paper. You can get a artist wipe and wipe your hands before beginning on this next step. You want to make sure that it's kind of clean. Or at least more so before moving on. So here I'm going to finish up the tail. I think on this I'm just going to keep going with those sweeping lines. To reveal all of that beautiful detail underneath. Now, I will say this. If the scale part is too much for you to do all in Sharpie and then go back, another thing you could do is you could just fill the entire page with whatever random colors you want and go over it with the black and then scratch out wherever you feel, and it's still gonna look totally awesome. Even if you just did one color, it would still look really cool. So what I'm going to do here is where I have this extra space, I'm going to kind of just come in and add some wave lines or wavy lines. If I have like a smudge on my paper, I might turn that into like a little bubble, because she's swishing her tail around and it's causing some disturbances in the water. Add a couple more wavy lines just so these smudges look a little less accidental and a little bit more on purpose. As Bob Ross would say, a happy accident, if you will. Okay, and remember, we're not looking for perfection. We're still learning here, right? But I hope you have fun with this graffito technique. If you get your area totally cleared off of all that oil pastel, like let's say you've got some clumps, you're going to make sure that those end up in the trash. You're going to make sure all your crayons are cleared. And then next week, we're going to be ready to do some painting. I'm going to go ahead and show you what that looks like, though. So here I have a flat brush. It's pretty large. I'm going to dip it in some liquid watercolor, just the tip of my bristles, not the entire thing. If it drips, wipe it on the lip. And then what you're going to do is just paint over everything. You don't want to push hard because you will accidentally smear the oil pastel. And I'm not like exactly trying to paint on top of the mermaid tail, I'm painting around it. But it is okay if I paint over these lines and these bubbles. pull that paint out, spread it down. And this is just going to wrap up our picture and make it feel more complete. Okay, amazing artist, here is my finished mermaid tail. It's ready to dry. And I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I hope you enjoy learning about sgraffito and finishing these up. And I look forward to seeing what kind of textures and patterns you can create in your artwork today. Happy painting!